gentlemen, and people at home watching us on Shaw TV. Tonight, December 7th, welcome to the regular council meeting. I call the regular council meeting to order. Introduction of late items. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Worship. In addition to the addendum, I have 3 items. All 3 are removals. Item 9C, College Park Water Main Development Cost Share. That one's removed. And there's 2 properties under the Property Maintenance Bylaw, 1990-3704. 2302 Rosstown Road is removed, and 135 Halliburton Street is also removed, Your Worship. But I understand Councillor Pratt and yourself have a couple of things to add.
Thank you. Councillor Pratt will be moving the ones that I wanted brought forward. Councillor Pratt.
Yes, I have 2 people who would like to present to the issue of the access options for Lindley Valley West, and those are Mr. Bill Tansey and Catherine Power.
Can we note that that's item 8D? Thank you. Any other late items? Thank you.
Just under your Worship, under the Mayor's report, are there additions, or are you going to just speak to it at that time?
I'll just speak to the one I got.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, can I have a motion for the adoption of the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Bestwick, seconded by Councillor Kipp. Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 4, motion for the adoption of the minutes of the November 2nd meeting of the regular meeting of Council, the special open meeting of November 2nd, and the special meeting of Council, public hearing of November 5th, as amended, to remove page 96 and include correspondence dated 2015 November 5 from Ms. Gillick regarding rezoning application number RA349, that 3425 Uplands Drive, see addendum. Move A, B, and C. Seconder? Seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. There are no presentations tonight, and I have 2 items under the Mayor's report. My first item is on Rise and Report. Council has appointed municipal directors to the Regional District of Nanaimo as follows. Mayor McKay with a weighted vote of 5 votes. Councillor Pratt with a weighted vote of 5 votes. Councillor Yoakum with a weighted vote of 5 votes. Councillor Hong with a weighted vote of 5 votes. Councillor Kipp with a weighted vote of 5 votes. And Councillor Bestwick with a weighted vote of 5 votes. And Councillor Thorpe with a weighted vote of 4 votes. Also on to Rise and Report that the primary alternate is Councillor Fuller and the secondary alternate director is Councillor Brennan. The next item is that Council has appointed Councillor Brennan to the Vancouver Island Library Board, with Councillor Pratt serving as an alternate. So the next item is Council has completed... I'll start again. Council has completed an investigation into allegations that confidential information was discussed and was disclosed from an in-camera meeting. Councillor Brennan and Councillor Thorpe will be making a statement to Council and to City residents in this open meeting. I would like to now invite them to do so. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like at this time to make a public apology. Recently, I committed a breach of the community charter when I commented on information which I did not realize was still in camera. This was an error in judgment on my part. I have apologized to Council, and I give assurance that such a mistake will not happen again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Brennan will be making a statement at the next open meeting of Council, as she is currently seeking legal advice. Council appreciates your candor that you've shown. Thank you. Next item. Item number 8. 8A. Lindley Valley Caudle Lake Park Alternative Approval Process Results. There's a motion on page 97 that Council receive for information the report pertaining to the results of the Lindley Valley Caudle Lake Park Alternative Approval Process at 3669 and 3699 Rock City Road. Move the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, award for request for proposal number 1684 for SAP Canada Certified Support Partner in Functional Consulting. There's a staff recommendation on page 99 that Council authorize the award of request for proposal number 1684. SAP Canada Certified Support Partner in Functional Consulting to the Createch Group. Moved by Councillor Yoakum, seconded by Councillor Beswick. Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to staff, the SAP software support is proposed at $188,000 a year, right? Is that correct? And then the next item for functional consulting is that based on a 3-year average, that's $144,000. So where were these current ones that we're paying? Who are we doing them through again? And why is there such a, I guess, $83,000 savings?
Yes, Your Worship, that's correct. So recently we came to Council to put an RFP together and a competitive process. 3 proponents responded, and we were able to save about $83,000 a year, or $250,000 in the term of the contract. In page number 2 of the report, I'm showing you how much are we currently paying and how much we're going to be paying after December 31st or January 1st.
Okay, thank you. My question was, why were we paying so much before?
Well, like any competitive process that we put out there, vendors have an opportunity to sharpen their pencils and give us a better deal. In this case, we were able to combine SAP support, maintenance support, and functional consulting at the same time. And being a 3-year contract, we were able to get a pretty good deal. So we're pretty happy with it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. Happy that a new councillor is asking the same questions that I usually ask on this topic. If I may ask, Mr. Ferrero, we indicate an RFP in a competitive process. Is there really more than one provider that can actually provide the services that when we have the SAP programs and all of those programs that we have that can come in with a different model, with a different service agreement, with a different arrangement that actually works for us? I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly. If you're asking me if there's more than one vendor that can provide the services, the answer is yes. We received 3 proposals in this case, and the level of service that they're going to provide is exactly as we had before. They just were able to give us a better deal, I guess, or a better price. They quoted a better price for us. Thank you. And my last question and second is, we didn't advertise what we were willing to pay for this particular service? No, we didn't advertise. We basically put an RFP out and we let them know what we're looking for, and they responded what you saw in the report. Thank you. And I think that speaks to how perhaps we may end up with a lower price when we don't expose what we're willing to pay. Because typically if we say we're willing to spend $300,000 on something, they come in at $298,000 to $305,000. If we don't tell anybody anything, we're in a better position to have a process where it's a little bit less transparent, which I think in this case is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions? Call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item. Liquor license application number LA118 is an application for a permanent change to the liquor primary license for the Vancouver Island University Student Union Lounge. There's a motion on page 101, and that is that recommendation, on page 101, that Council recommend that the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch approve an application to increase the license capacity for the existing liquor primary license for the property located at 900 Fifth Street from 140 to 167 persons. Moved.
Your Worship, I'd like to declare a conflict on this issue because I own a liquor license.
Thank you. The clerk, please note that Councillor Hong has excused himself. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Bestwick. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item. Access options for Lindley Valley West. Public consultation summary and next steps. Purpose is to obtain Council's direction with respect to road network options for Lindley Valley West. Now, was any member of staff going to give us a presentation on this item, or just go with the staff report?
We're certainly prepared, Your Worship, just to do a brief introduction if that's Council's pleasure. Otherwise, we can just answer questions.
Can we have a brief introduction then, and we'll go to the speakers after the presentation? The delegations. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Foy, who will walk you through a little bit of a background on what we've heard from the public and what we're seeking from Council this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Foy.
Thank you very much. So, if I can just get this. Just a bit of context, going back to the spring of 2014, when the creation of the expanded Lindley Valley Caudle Lake Park occurred, staff was directed to re-examine the role and function of Lindley Valley Drive. That was followed up in the spring of 2015 with reviewing a number of potential access options for the western part of the valley, and with direction to take options 1 and 2 forward to public consultation. And then this fall, we've come up for that public consultation process, and we're reporting back on that tonight. So the two options, briefly, is option 1 is basically a new road connecting from where Lindley, just beyond where Lindley Valley Drive ends today, connecting out to Rutherford Road across from Nelson. And there's two options there to go with a traffic signal or a roundabout. I've highlighted this property, 5290 Rutherford Road. It's a critical piece of property required to execute on this option, and we currently have an option to purchase agreement on that property until the end of this year. Also, I've highlighted some possible traffic calming on Nelson that, if we pursued this option with support of the neighborhood, would be something we could consider also. Option 2 effectively uses existing pieces of the road network, 2 routes for trips heading to the north. They would use Cascara, Alta Vista, Lost Lake, and then to Vandernook with a signal or a new signal at Vandernook and Rutherford. To the south, a new road, Glenmore, would connect to Colborne, then to Fairbrook, then on to Brookwood, and eventually trips would work their way out to Rutherford that way. Glenmore is not constructed yet, but it's part of long-term development plans, and the timing of its construction would be with the adjacent development along it. The other thing that we consulted on was we identified that improvements to pedestrian connectivity. There's a trail system in Lindley Valley that runs roughly along McGregor Creek and the wetlands. It ends abruptly at Rutherford Road, and then there's an additional trail on the other side. This is something that was identified through our review, and we also consulted on as part of this consultation process. So the process itself, October 5th, staff attended a regular meeting of the Renderson Ridge Parent Advisory Committee. On the 8th, we had a public consultation at the Oliver Woods Community Center with an attendance by over 300 residents, and the 8th through 16th we had an online survey with over 400 respondents' results. A summary of that survey is in your agenda. I know it's quite a few pages, but there was probably over 1,000 comments just because there's more than one question in there, so quite a bit of feedback in there. So just a survey of some of the really key results was that support for option 1, this is the new road linking Lindley Valley Drive to Rutherford across from Nelson, was 80% either strongly supported or supported option 1. And then we asked a second question, if we went with option 1, was there support for a roundabout or traffic signal at Rutherford? And here we had 72% of people supporting or strongly supporting the roundabout option. For option 2, we had about 21% support, and I do know that just under 60% of people strongly oppose this option. And for either option 1 or 2, there was strong support for trail improvements. So there's a typo in the presentation. It should say support or strongly supported trail crossings. Staff's recommendation in the report is to undertake three steps at this point. One is to exercise the option to purchase agreement for 5290 Rutherford Road. As I mentioned, the option to purchase expires. We have to make notice that we intend to purchase it by the end of this calendar year, and then we have a month after that time that we make that notice to complete the purchase. That staff prepare detailed design drawings and costing for the roundabout and associated roadworks at the intersection of Rutherford and Nelson Roads, and we bring that updated costing and timing options for Council's consideration in advance of the 2017-2021 financial plan. And that's it.
Thank you very much. You've got control of the slides, Mr. Foy?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we have two delegations, Mr. Bill Tansey and Catherine Power. I would expect Mr. Tansey, being the gentleman that I know he is probably going to let Ms. Power go first. Just need your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Your Worship, councillors and city staff, my name is Catherine Power. I live at 5690 Vandernook Road. And I'm thinking all the time that I spent on this is probably really good, but I am in total agreement with what the city staff have come up with. As I live on Vandernook Road, I have serious concerns about the safety of the people, children, elderly, going along Vandernook Road. Vandernook Road has only one sidewalk. It has no bike lane. The traffic has increased exponentially since I've moved there 15 years ago. They have expanded Dewar Road. Just the whole Cougar Trail area, that was all expanded since I've moved there. And all the stuff up Laguna Way has all increased the traffic. Felt that it was very wrong to put a traffic light at the corner of Vandernook and Rutherford because of the steepness of the slope. There's been many times in the winters where I have been unable to get up that side of the hill, but I have been able to get up the other side of the hill. So I think safety is really key, that we don't want to be putting a whole bunch more traffic through another residential neighborhood, or two residential neighborhoods, in fact. Again, I don't know how much of this I need to say, because it seems like that the recommendation has gone toward the way that I wanted it to go. But the other factors I thought of was environment. When you have a very quick access out to Rutherford Road one way, otherwise you are directing traffic all the way through these neighborhoods, and it's not good for the environment either. OCP, of course, had a road going out to Rutherford at the beginning, and I'm glad to see we have another option. And I'm going to just sum it up, because I think we're all on the same page. If we're not, I'll come back. I just think it's a common sense, it's the absolute common sense thing to do. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions for you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you, ma'am, for your report. Just for my clarity, you're a supporter of the first option?
Absolutely, yes, of what the city staff have recommended and of option number one.
Thank you, and respect and recognize, and thank you for sharing the struggles that are happening with the lanes, etc. So thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to receive the delegation. Councillor Pratt, and seconded by Councillor Bestwick. Discussion, seeing none, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Tansey. I just need your name and address for the record, sir.
Bill Tansey, 5690 Lost Lake Road. Your Worship, councillors, staff. I'm new to the area, and as such didn't have the opportunity of submitting any of the data and whatnot that was recorded and subsequently acted on behalf of the staff. To that end, I congratulate them and thank them for the efforts they've put in. Obviously, my focus is option one, and that is to mitigate the traffic going through the community and the neighborhoods by using a new road going out to Rutherford. My concern is, as expressed by my prior resident, that being that Lost Lake Road has increased traffic enormously. Obviously, there's a lot of properties along Lost Lake Road. One thing that surprised me in becoming a new neighbor was that Ocean View Terrace, which runs off of Norton, is almost automatically diverting to Lost Lake Road as their access road, because it's much easier to run across the top of the ridge than it is to go down to Hammond Bay, all the way down Hammond and then back up Rutherford. I don't have the exact numbers of the number of homes going into Ocean View Terrace, but I have a daughter and son-in-law that live there, so I'm quite used to the access and the traffic. Along with that, at the far end of Lost Lake Road, there's consisted in numerous constructions going on, and it looks like, again, a major development. I did have the opportunity of speaking with several of the residents on Alta Vista, as I'm only less than a block away, and the frustration that is encountered in talking to them is absolutely incredible. Their inabilities to exit their homes because they can't tell from traffic. The amount of traffic, the time frame that's gone on since the project started, and the amount of construction traffic that they're putting up with on a daily basis. I can only hope that with the suggestions made by staff, that this can be met with in a timely fashion so people's lives can get back to some semblance of normal. There is an incredible amount of money being made available via the tax base that's being created in Lindley Valley. 600 plus homes, most of them have basement suites, and Lindley Valley or Lindley Point even became a subject of the discussions on closing Rutherford, where the developer that's doing the townhomes referenced the fact that there are going to be 350 new homes going in, and perhaps schools should be considered in the Lindley Valley area. To that end, this is obviously quite redundant in many aspects, but I thank you for hearing me. I appreciate the opportunity of expressing my opinion. I look forward to being a resident in Nanaimo for quite a while, and again, I congratulate the staff on the work they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I don't see any questions for you, but I just wanted to make a point, and that is that Mr. Tansey was not did not make it in time to get on as a late delegation, and it was the first time that he's ever had anything to do with a process which appears to some people to be quite complicated. Mr. Tansey was a little bit frustrated, or more than a little bit frustrated, and had a somewhat prickly encounter between himself and staff. When I spoke to Mr. Tansey and I suggested how, he might rectify the situation with respect to his encounter with staff, he didn't hesitate and phoned staff and apologized. You're a gentleman, sir, and I want to thank you for that.
I appreciate it, and
thank you.
I might add, on behalf of the staff member, I can honestly say that I haven't been first at many things, but I think I was the first one that ever apologized to her, so she was absolutely astounded.
Again, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. I see no further questions for you, sir. Thank you. There is a staff recommendation on page 108. It's got 3 parts to it. Do we have a mover?
I so move.
Moved by Councillor Pratt. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Kemp. Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. I know that we're speaking specifically to the option to purchase. I have a question or two of staff, if I may, please. And a suggestion, recommendation, if possible as well. And I'll start with the suggestion recommendation. The flat sheets that we have that show the description, the subdivision and the road alignments and things are nice. I'm wondering if we could have real time pictures on TV and behind us, not now, but in the future, of where we're speaking to in terms of the roundabout on Rutherford that connects to Nelson, that connects to Lynyard, the property that, so whether it's a Google search thing, but just something that gives it a little bit more dimension, and I think it brings a little bit more opportunity for the members of the audience and or community that is observing what it is that we're speaking more specifically to. So that was my suggestion, recommendation. I hope we can do that for the majority of these types of reports. Secondly, so when I look at the red line that takes us through option 1 access route, and it comes down Lindley Valley Drive, and it runs parallel to Lynyard Road, and we go through Lindley Valley 5783, and then we go through 5847, then we go through 5290. Does this line mirror the road alignment that we'll be undertaking, or are we going down Lynyard Road and coming up through the property that we're proposing to purchase at 5290? I was on site today speaking to one of the owners, developers, and he understood that we were going down Lynyard and then cutting up off toward the end of Lynyard Road, actually literally using Lynyard Road. So in this alignment, we're not. So I'm just curious if you could help me, please.
Yeah, to clarify, so the proposal is not to use Lynyard Road. It would be to follow that red alignment. Now, it would require an amendment to the preliminary layout of the subdivision, and therefore, once we go through that process, that alignment is still general, but we would have to get into 5290 and avoid the parcel to the south of it, and then all of the lands to the east of that are part of Lamont's properties, and therefore we would be working with them to find a subdivision layout that would make the most sense and a road alignment that would make the most sense. So there's a little bit more process that has to occur to get a final road alignment, but in general, the red line is where the road would be. It's just it might move around a little bit to get your sort of layout optimized.
Thank you. And a follow-up, please, because obviously the topography is not flat where it's cutting through, and there's going to be considerable carving through some properties going on. My second question, if I may, is the roundabout as it connects to Nelson. And I'm quite happy about the roundabout because I prefer right-ins, right-outs on extremely busy arteries like this. And I'm not fond of more lights. Now this roundabout sits right at the crest of the hill, essentially. Can you help me to better understand the safety factor with this roundabout proposal?
Right, so the roundabout location would be approximately right across from where Nelson intersection is today. And as you correctly identified, you come up the Rutherford Hill, there's a bit of a crest right at the Quilted Duck there, and then you start to dip down a little bit. So you're actually a little bit on a downgrade. If we develop a roundabout at that point, everybody coming up that hill would know that that roundabout is just beyond that crest. There'd be appropriate warning signage in place to warn people that it's coming up. And speeds would drop as you approach the roundabout. For most of our roundabouts, we want people entering into the roundabout, say 20 to 30 kilometers an hour. And it's one of the safety features of roundabouts is that you're moving slowly. If you do end up in a collision, it tends to be a fender bender as opposed to something more severe. So one of the big advantages of roundabout in this location is 100% of the time when you come over that crest, you know that you're going to have to slow down, and therefore you'll start preparing for that well beyond that, and you'll have signage to support that. And when you do get there, you're moving slowly enough that, first of all, roundabouts don't have as many collisions, but the severity of those collisions is much, much lower because the speeds are low.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't remember a discussion for us to put an option in to purchase 5290 Rutherford Road. When did we have that discussion?
Your Worship, Council gave us that direction earlier this year, and we proceeded at that time and obtained the option to purchase, but it does expire at the end of 2015.
Was that done in camera or was that done on open?
Your Worship, that was done in open.
Thank you.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. I know I thought I was done too. I have one other question as it relates, and because it is relative to how we're going to fund this purchase. And my question is, property acquisition fund is a really important fund, in my opinion. And I'm wondering why this entire project is not funded by DCCs. Why is only 300,000 of the 850, which is much more? It's a significant price from what it was on the market for. I won't get into that. But why is this entire project not DCCs related?
The reason we split the amounts for funding as a potential funding option is that we're anticipating that a good portion of the property, and if we sort of reference the graphic, you can see there's a fair portion of it to the north that potentially is available for, what is the word I'm escaping for? Basically resale out to the market. The entire property is not required for roads. So to the south boundary of the property, you have this rock face that we will be avoiding and working around to the north side of it. Then you have the road, and then you have some remnants lands. So the property endowment fund value is effectively trying to estimate what the value of those remnant lands would be or greater. Expectation is we try to recover that 550 back through disposal, but we can't guarantee that.
Right. So under normal circumstances, we wouldn't be looking at a property disposition to replenish a property acquisition through a sale on a project that could be covered with 100% of DCCs. So I get the justification, but I'm not. To me, I would much prefer to see this as a DCC project, and if we sell those lots or whatever we do with it, because who knows what we're going to do with it, then we have more monies in our property acquisition fund. DCCs are paid by the developer. I'd rather see them pay for it. So is this not a 100% qualified DCC project? It is it not?
Sorry, Your Worship, I think I'd just like to add on to something that Mr. Foy was saying, and I was going to talk about exactly the point you raised, is what qualifies under the DCC bylaw. The DCC project is the road in the intersection, so we can use DCC funds to acquire lands necessary to fulfill that DCC project, but in this case we're buying more lands than we actually need for that project. So it's a very legal issue in terms of we can use DCC money to offset the cost of obtaining the land associated just with that project. So that's why we've come forward with a mix of funding sources here.
Okay.
Thank you. So we have no further questions. We have a motion on the floor. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Move item number 2, direct staff to prepare detailed design drawings and costing for the roundabout and associated roadworks at the intersection of Rutherford and Nelson Roads.
I thought we moved them as a group.
No, we didn't. We read out number 1.
We have it down as all three, Your Worship.
Oh, because when I asked my questions, I said, I know that we're only talking about number 1, to exercise the option to purchase. But if we did all 3, I stand corrected.
Yep. Next item. Development variance permit number DVP 267 at 112th Street. And the purpose is to obtain council direction with respect to request to vary the provisions of the Nanaimo Building Bylaw 2003 number 5693 that requires construction of frontage works and services. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to DVP 267. Good evening. We'll need your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Randy Regier from 9942 Stonegate Place, Chilliwack. And I am the project manager representing Chartwell Seniors Housing Malaspina Gardens project that is, the current site is on McCleary and the new site is 112th Street in Nanaimo. So Your Worship and Councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this development variance permit application. I'd like to give a little bit of background on this project. Chartwell, which currently runs the Malaspina Gardens facility on McCleary, and some of you probably are very familiar with that, may have been born in that location, in that existing hospital. Everyone knows that it is well past its time. And Chartwell has been negotiating with Vancouver Island Health Authority for at least 6 years to come up with a solution to rebuild that facility. Initially, it was tried that it would be rebuilt on site, and unfortunately, there wasn't a solution on how not to disrupt the patients during reconstruction, even if it was phased. So Chartwell decided that the best option would be to purchase a new site and build from scratch, and then when the facility is complete, the patients will be moved with very little disruption to their well-being and quality of living and health. And so that is the option that has been pursued, and we have received the rezoning for that site, and the staff has been wonderful in working together with us to bring that into line with the Chase River Neighborhood Plan. There's construction has started on the foundation, and all we have left is a remaining item that we're discussing tonight, which is a request for some reduction in scope of work for off-sites. I would like to bring up a site plan, and I have a pointer here that hopefully will work. This is the site location right here of the new proposed facility. There have been discussions with staff about building a new 11th Street all the way to Junction. It will be built to approximately this location with the first phase. There's new roadworks coming along Lawler. And eventually, when the second phase is built, there will be additional works on Junction. Staff is also asking for curb gutter, paving, storm drainage, etc., upgrades on 12th. But there's an existing residential lot here and here. This one has been demolished. So there's a stretch of roadworks along 12th that we feel we're being, maybe the word isn't penalized, but because this site has 4 adjacent properties of road, the roadworks add up to approximately $1.2 million. It's a horrendous cost to this project. And Chartwell has agreed that it's fair to build the new 11th, it's fair to upgrade Lawler, and it's fair to upgrade Junction at some point in time. But they're requesting tonight that we would get your support to not have to do the upgrades on 12th. There was a traffic study submitted to staff, and last September, during the time when they did the traffic study, there was 1 vehicle that drove on 12th during that traffic study. There were 290 that drove down Lawler and turned into the shopping center. So the upgrades in this area make good sense. The upgrades on 12th just don't seem to add up at this point in time until some future date when maybe there's additional development across the road from 12th or up in the area by Junction. So the roadworks along 12th are approximately $280,000. If we received your support, it would reduce the cost from approximately $1.2 million to in the range of $900,000. Still, cost added to the first and second phase. And just as an example, Chartwell's DCCs for this site, just for phase 1, is over $700,000. And the municipal taxes that will be paid annually for this new building amount to over $300,000. And I'd like you to put the second photo up. This is a picture of what phase 1 will look like. This is the building outline right here, and it is a 136 bed care facility with dementia care as well. And it will be a modern, full-service, high standard of healthcare facility that Chartwell is renowned for. At this point, they only have one facility on Vancouver Island, and that is the Malaspina Gardens facility. But they are looking forward to this being their flagship facility moving forward. There's been a precedent set by council in the past with University Village Shopping Centre, where off-site roadworks were reduced significantly. Similar situation where they had 4 adjacent properties, and we feel that this site would significantly benefit in terms of helping the second phase to get going a lot quicker if those roadwork costs were reduced. We do have the truck supply service for the food services coming onto 12th, but it's a fairly small truck, and the traffic report has dealt with that there's sufficient space and movement for that vehicle to do its work. So I'd like to just close off in saying that I thank you for listening to my presentation here. We're definitely looking forward to completing the project and finding a way to redevelop the existing Malaspina site on McCleary, which eventually will add, again, significant DCCs and revitalized taxes to the city with the success of this project, as well as the phase 2, which will come down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question to the delegation. I refresh my memory because I can't recall. Is Chartwell a for-profit or a not-for-profit organization?
They are a for-profit organization, but these beds in this facility are government funded by Vancouver Island Health Authority.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Regier, for the presentation. I just want to make a quick comment, not really a question to yourself, is in regards, really a fan of your project. The instant $1 million you're bringing to the city on phase 1 plus 300 plus annually in taxes is really beneficial for the city, and obviously makes common sense to myself. But more importantly than the numbers is we have a duty to an aging age group demographic. That is our most popular demographic. So I look forward to be a supporter where I can and to support our elders. Your clientele is elders, and we have to make sure we provide adequate housing for elders. So I just want to say I'm really a champion of your project, especially more so what you stand for is supporting our elders. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Mr. Gear, and thank you for your immediate action while you were sitting there bringing up that real-life picture of the property that we're talking about. Appreciate that. Just kidding, of course, if anybody thinks that he did. He's good, but he's not that good. Phase 1, what is the cost to open phase 1, please? Approximately $25 million by the time the land, construction, equipment, off-site road improvements, and fully functional operation facility. About approximately $25 million will be invested by Chartwell.
Thank you. And the second phase?
The second phase is likely to be that or possibly more, depending on whether the market will dictate the need accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you for the confidence that Chartwell has expressed in opening up a facility of this nature in our city. Thank you.
Councillor Kemp.
Thank you. You did say $25 million was the project total?
Correct.
And you said you've spent about 6 years with VHA, Vancouver Health Authority?
Yes.
And I know you've been in the city for approximately a year and a half for a 2-year process?
That's correct.
Went through. Okay, and $300,000 a year in taxes?
Over 300.
Over 300. Okay. Thank you.
As well as the existing McCleary site gets, something will be done with it once it's vacated. There's liable to be a redevelopment there with increased DCCs, and that one's in a no DCC zone, so I stand corrected on the DCCs for that site, but definitely municipal taxes will be increased with whatever's redeveloped there as well.
Yeah, so where I was born and where I went to university or college.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to the delegation. I'm looking at the map that you got here, where I got from here. Are you proposing not to do 12th Street even after you do the second phase, or are we just talking about the first phase right now?
No, that's correct. We're proposing to not have to do anything on 12th. There's the 2 residential lots in either corner, and my understanding from discussions with staff is that they are already proposing to use DCCs at some point in time to do the improvements along both sides of those existing residential lots. We think that it would be prudent at that time for staff to also then upgrade 12th, depending on what the use is. There just isn't any traffic on 12th. It doesn't make sense to put a brand new road, curb, gutter, sidewalk when there's one car in the afternoon.
Okay, so I'm just trying to verify that. What about Junction? You were going to stop there as well.
Yeah, Junction would then be upgraded with the phase 2. Staff has been gracious to allow us to phase the offsite works. So phase 1 will be Lawler, New 11th, up to here. Phase 2 will be 11th to Junction, and then Junction up to there.
Thank you. So my question, I guess I don't know if you or the staff is, I like the pretty picture that you've continued on to the bottom to 12 from Lawler. Who's going to do that part, or where that private property is?
Chartwell has contributed $5,000 to the city for the sidewalk to be extended to the corner. And my understanding is the city is looking at using part of the DCCs from this project to complete that little bit of roadworks.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Fuller.
Really want to thank you for bringing up the precedent we set with University Village. Yeah, I think it's great when we set a precedent and people take advantage of them. Yeah, so it definitely makes it harder to say no when we already have a precedent in place for doing such as this. And that is, like you say, it's a very quiet area right now, and I don't expect it to get, well, you never know, it may get busier soon, but at that point, then we can deal with it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see no further questions. Motion to receive the delegation. Seconder. Councillor Brennan, thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to Development Variance Permit 267? Second time, anyone else wishing to speak to DVP 267? And for the third and final time? Seeing none? Councillor Bastrick.
Development Variance Permit number DVP 267 at 112th Street to relax the construction of frontage works and services along the 12th Street frontage of the subject property.
Seconded by Councillor Kipp. Thank you. Speakers to the motion. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. I would like to ask staff a question about the report. I'm on page 3 of the report, and it says in previous situations, well, first of all, it says that there have been other applications to relax the works and service requirements, and those have been supported by council. But it goes on to say, in the previous situations, there was either a clear council priority supporting the development, or it was a situation where the City of Nanaimo was responsible for the construction. So what I'm wondering is, could you give examples of those earlier times when they were relaxed, and what was the clear council priority that was referred to?
Thank you, Worship. I think really there's two projects that come to mind, and one's already been talked about this evening, and that was to encourage the redevelopment of what at that time was Harewood Mall. And we had an applicant who wanted to come forward and see some revitalization, but he had 4 property frontages. All sides of the property had property frontage in, so he was looking at significant works and services. So that council at that time agreed to vary works and services and focus them on the major roads, the 2 major commercial frontages, and deferred the improvements on the residential side streets. The other one that I can think of is when there's a city project and the city's responsible to do the frontage works and services. And the one on Nanaimo Lakes Road where we did the reservoir building, maybe last year before, that building itself would, under the bylaw, trigger frontage works and services, but given the length of works and services and given that it would be the city doing it at that time or the city doing it in the future, council agreed to vary it in that situation.
Can I just follow up? So when we're looking at some sort of social housing, don't we ever relax these, or do we use another fund and take those funds, say, from the homelessness fund? So we'll take funds from one place and put it in another rather than relax, or yes?
That's absolutely correct, Your Worship. As part of Council's initiatives with the housing projects on Uplands most recently, that's exactly what was done. Council took money from the Housing Legacy Fund and used that to offset the cost of frontage works and services. That was our contribution to those developments.
Thank you.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to staff, also, I guess another example, probably not related to this, but the SPCA. Right? We said, you know what, you're on AR land, we don't need frontages, just leave it the way it is. So that's the example that pops to my head right away, is when the SPCA is building the building, we said that they don't need the frontages. So that's the one that would come up. But I like this, I support this. These are taxpayers paying us over $300,000 a year. This is a non-profit. We're not giving any tax exemptions, are we? No. So they're not asking for much, and I see that they've done the majority of the work. That area along that side, I think, would even look funny if you did one piece and wait and wait and wait until you do another piece and then wait and wait. It seems to make the most amount of sense, especially if you can get enough DCCs out of these other areas that are going to be developing, for us to make sure that we get this road work done later on. So I do support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Joachim.
Thank you, Worship. As I touched on earlier, nevertheless, the taxes and the dollars it's going to bring to the city and looking after the elders of the city, but also I'm definitely going to support and relaxing the bylaws in this matter, for the simple fact is councils, and this council is being stated of not maybe business friendly or red tape, call it whatever, but nevertheless, this is an example where there should be some flexibility. We got to have flexibility to do projects as such. So definitely a champion of a well worth project. And I forgot to mention the the employments that this facility will bring to the city as well, and also the phase 2, and also the old site. Who knows what's going to be there? So it's definitely a win-win-win. Thank you.
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I too really like this project, and I like it because of the type of facility that it is. Certainly in Nanaimo, we do need these types of facilities. I look at the amount that they would be spared by us making this motion, and just a question to staff, that would be 300,000 of the 1.2 million, is that correct?
Your Worship, that's the numbers that I heard the applicant speak of this evening. The estimates that staff have given, our engineering staff have given me, are considerably lower than that. We'd estimate about 150,000.
Okay, so it's not a significant amount. I am in favor of the motion. I do believe that this is an important development and is something that our city desperately needs. And I'm also glad to hear that there will be some form of development where the old facility is as well. Thank you.
Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. I just wish to finish with stated relax, not eliminate. A $25 million investment in our city. $25 million, phase 1. As it's previously been stated, job creation, sub-trades, contractors, people that will work, increased taxes, $700,000 in DCC contribution and $300,000 annually, only to grow, probably by 2.5% to 3% a year. So I can't see any reason strong enough to convince me not to support my own motion. Thank you.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'll support this motion as well, although when I first read the staff report, I was leery of setting a precedent, but I'm hearing that we have on occasion already set precedent, and when we look at the significant value of this project, I don't have a problem in relaxing the development charges, and I'll certainly support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. I'm inclined not to support the request for relaxation. The reason being is that we have typically in the past used social aims as the reason why we would relax some costs. And for instance, revitalization was the goal with Harewood Mall. When we do it for city projects, the purpose is a public purpose. We are building a public facility. I think we have to be very careful when we use the amount of money that the project is going to cost. I think we need to be very careful when we determine that the magnitude of the expenditure equals a social purpose. I mean, all developments are expensive, they cost money, they generate jobs. Those are givens, those are facts. But as I say, for me, I think we need to proceed with caution when we are using those kinds of reasons to justify relaxing costs to a developer. This is a for-profit organization. This will be a for-profit organization when it is up and running. They will be making a profit. So I'm just inclined to say no at this point. I don't see that we have any social purpose that we've set out as a kind of measurement for this. And I am concerned about the precedent that will be set.
Yep, Councillor Fuller.
If this was another mall, I would certainly oppose it. When we talk about social purpose, I think seniors and them having to live in a facility that is far past its prime, that has a storied history in Nanaimo for a number of reasons, and that will soon be gone, despite the fact that it could likely be considered a heritage building. To move these people to a brand new facility, that's enough social purpose for me. So I will support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. Not to belabor my point earlier, in regards to the social sector or the social portion of the conversation, I absolutely understand it as I run a nonprofit myself, but nevertheless, also value the tax base these people are going to bring to the city. For the simple fact, we reward through various forms over $7 million of tax permissive, and also $250,000 plus in grants to nonprofits. So therefore, we need to get that. We need the other hand to feed that hand. So I'm definitely in support of that as well. This supports the social sector. Somebody has to pay for those other things we do. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a question for staff, and that is, with respect to the motion as it's now written that council approve, and it says to relax the construction of frontage works along 12th Street, frontage of the subject property. And I know the delegation did speak about phase 2, but I don't see where the motion actually requires the works and services to be done at phase 2. Can you help me with that? I turned you on, you turned it off.
Sorry, thank you. Your Worship, I guess to start with, our understanding of the application was specifically to the works on 12th Street as part of Phase 1. And if you look at the map on page 199 in your agenda, that's probably the best place to speak to this at. Through the rezoning application, it was agreed to defer half of the works and services, so half of 11th, all of Junction, and half of 12th, until the second phase of the project. Yep, there's the image on the screen. Thank you. And that was done and registered by Covenant at the time of rezoning. So the application, as we understood, and more importantly, as we went out and notified the community, was based on varying the frontage works and services for the half of 12th Street that is in pink. So my recommendation would be, if council wants to proceed with that motion, it would apply specifically to that portion of 12th, and that if or when the second half of the property comes in for development, we would need to come back for a subsequent variance at that time.
Come back for a subsequent variance?
For the portion of 12th that's in blue on your map and shown on the screen.
So as I see it, the entire property is one property, and it's one application. Am I correct?
You're right. There's one property there, but given the size of it and given that the applicants were proposing to develop just the eastern half at this time, that's why we did the original deferring of the works and services through the rezoning process. But what I'm saying to you tonight is, if you want to go forward with a variance, I think based on the notification that we've done, I hear what council wants to achieve, but I'm just saying based on the notification that's been done, I think that that motion needs to be limited to the one half of 12th Street.
Okay, so for example, I mean, I've got some concerns that if anything's developed around, perhaps across the street, for example, even on Junction and on the other half of the new 11th Street, that once that property is developed, there will be a requirement by those developers to go halfway through the street, or to, there's going to be certain works and services required. I just want to make sure that we're protected, that when phase 2 goes through, that that what we believe is to happen will happen.
So with phase 2, under the covenant, half of 12th Street would be built. If the variance is approved as before you this evening, the half to the rear of the building that's on the screen, so half the road, the curb, the gutter, the sidewalks, the street trees would not be installed. And if they were ever to be installed, it would be done at the city's, on the city's dime in the future.
So this relaxation is a total forgiveness. It's not a relaxation.
It's a relaxation for works and services for that portion of the road frontage. Okay. For 12th Street, thank you. Yes.
Your Worship, if I could clarify, our development variance permit application is very clear of the deletion or relaxation, however you want to interpret it, of all works on 12th, phase 1 and 2. It's not just phase 1, and it's clearly laid out in our application. So if council were to support our application, there would be no work done on 12th in phase 1 or phase 2. But the rest of the works on Junction and the balance of 11th would be done in phase 2.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just in terms of the idea that we would be subsidizing a for-profit organization, I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that Chartwell Retirement Residences are one of the biggest retirement resident operators in North America. And I don't feel right about a subsidy from the taxpayer.
Thank you. I see no further speakers. Motion has been moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item. Additional condition for approval for rezoning application number RA 345 at 601 and 609 Bruce Avenue. The purpose is to present an amendment to the covenant conditions associated with the proposed rezoning applications for 601 and 609 Bruce Avenue to limit the permitted business hours of operation for the fast food restaurant and retail uses to 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. Staff recommendation is on page 201 that council direct staff to secure a covenant limiting the hours of operation for retail uses, restaurant uses, and fast food uses, in addition to conditions for maximum permitted unit size, lot consolidation, roadworks, bicycle parking, road dedication, and the community contribution prior to the adoption of the bylaw, and 2, to consider third reading to the zoning amendment bylaw 2015 number 4500.081. Moved by Councillor Bestwick, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item. 2015 to 2019 Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw. To amend the 2015 to 2019 Financial Plan for changes that have occurred since the bylaw was last amended on 2015 August 17. Staff recommendation is that Council receive for information the report pertaining to Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw 2015 number 7206.02. So, to get on the floor, do we have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Bestwick, seconded by Councillor Brennan. Discussion. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. $2.7 million transfer from accumulated surplus, as broken down in the report. Thank you. The water treatment plant, $1.5 million budget is added to be funded from Community Works Reserve. Is that the only amount that we have added to the water treatment plant for this period?
For the 2015 plan, yes.
And is there any amount forecasted or projected to be added for 2016?
No, not at this point. No.
Because this is in addition to what our original estimate was. So we increased the budget of the water treatment plant expenditure previously to this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that amount was in the neighborhood of $1 million, $2 million?
We added $1 million due to an additional grant we got last year to it. That was in 2014?
So we've increased the budget by $2.5 million. Then.
That is correct.
And we're not finished with potential expenditures.
I'll let the Director of Engineering and Public Works answer that.
So no, the project isn't finished yet. We anticipate that this will be enough money for us to finish the project, but there still is the potential for a claim from the contractor.
Thank you.
Councillor Kep.
Just on page 205, the Appendix A, it speaks to Councillor Bestwick's concern earlier. There's two columns on the right-hand side of the page, one totals and one project costs. I'd like to see that long column of project costs eliminated from in-camera. I mean, it's hard, the transparency thing, because if we put it down in our budget that it's going to be $31,322, it's going to come in at $13,000, right? And that's what I think reports are. So, but it's nice to know the breakdowns. But I think that does cause us a problem on open bidding, in that, although it's for transparency, but then the bidding process concerns me. So, I'm going to go back to page 204. Departure Bay Seawall, Sherwood Drive water main, and Laguna Way water main funded from reserves. They were added to the budget. Are these not infrastructure projects that should have been in the budget anyhow, or are they not? Are they new projects?
So the project of Laguna and Sherwood Drive were in the budget, but because of the problems we've had on with the water mains there, we advanced those projects, and that's why you're seeing them here.
Oh, okay. They were 217 then.
Yeah. And the Departure Bay Seawall project was also in the budget, but we were over budget on that, so we brought a report back to council to. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thanks. I'm sorry, I meant to ask a second question. This is a smaller item on page 205. Bowen tennis court improvements, closed circuit television. Are those security cameras for outdoor purposes? Can you help? Could you please help me with that?
I can. The Bowen tennis court improvements, an additional budget of $38. The next one down below, the drainage maintenance equipment CCTV camera, that's a separate one for $27,000.
And that's for outdoor reasons?
It's for drainage and sewer. And again, I'll let the Director of Engineering and Public Works talk about that.
So I'm a bit confused. Are we asking about the Bowen tennis courts or the CCTV camera project?
I'm asking about, sorry, it was under the Bowen tennis court, so my apologies. It is specific to the CCTV camera for $27,000. Could you tell me where that's for?
Yes, so that's the camera we use to do assessments of our sanitary sewer and our storm sewers. That's what that is.
Okay, I thought we were maybe watching people play tennis on them.
Okay.
Thank you. See no further speakers. Call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is bylaw. First item, that financial plan amendment bylaw 2015-7206.02 passed first reading. We have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Kipp, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Thank you. Discussion, seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Motion that financial plan amendment bylaw 2015 number 7206.02 pass second reading. Can mover, please? Councillor Pratt and Councillor Thorpe. Thank you. Discussion, seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, council that financial plan amendment bylaw 7206.02 passed third reading. Councillor Pratt and Thorpe, thank you. Seeing no questions, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, city collector. The purpose is to assign duties and responsibilities of the deputy collector for the city of Nanaimo, and there's a recommendation on page 208 that council assign the duties and responsibilities of Deputy Collector for the City of Nanaimo to Victor Mima. Moved by Councillor Bestwick, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Thank you. Questions? I have one question. That's the deputy. Who's the big guy?
The city collector is the manager of revenue services. So Diane Hiscock
Diane is the, okay.
is the
she's
collector.
She's the collector.
It goes with that position.
Great, thank you. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Unresolved building deficiencies. Notice on title, section 57. First one, it's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak to in respect to unresolved building deficiencies for the properties listed below. The first one is 1440 Bay Street. Anyone wishing to speak to 1440 Bay Street? 3040 Bay Street. Anyone wishing to speak to 3040 Bay Street? Anyone wishing to speak to 669 Beaconsfield Road? Anyone wishing to speak to 941 Beaufort Drive? Anyone wishing to speak to 2635 Beaver Creek Crescent? Anyone wishing to speak to 2642 Beaver Creek Crescent? Anyone wishing to speak to 2646 Beaver Creek Crescent? And anyone wishing to speak to 998 Victoria Road? Seeing none, there is a staff recommendation that council by resolution instruct the corporate officer to file a bylaw contravention notice respecting the properties listed below at the Land Title and Survey Authority of British Columbia under section 57 of the Community Charter. Can we have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Pratt. Thank you. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Thank you. Seeing no questions, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item. Under Community Service, 9A. Owner request for reconsideration of council decision. 215 Nickel Street, structure removal. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to structure removal order at 215 Nickel Street. Is there anyone wishing to speak to 215 Nickel Street? Seeing none, there's a staff recommendation on page 215 that council, pursuant to section 78 of the Community Charter, reconsider and confirm the remedial action requirement passed at the meeting 2015, October 5, regarding 215 Nickel Street. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Pratt, thank you. Seconder? Okay, Councillor Thorpe, thank you. And discussion, Councillor Fuller.
I brought this up the last time. It's extremely unfortunate, and this is one example. We've had two come in front of us where the value of the house is so small that no matter what happens to it, it's going to cost more than 75% of the value to fix it. It's just next to impossible. I mean, we had the one on Gillespie where the guy wanted to replace some windows, some drywall, some doors. There had been a small fire in an entryway, and because the cost of replacing those was more than 75%, the building is deemed to be removed. Now, if that person had have done all of that work, just gotten a building permit to do the work without a fire taking place, that wouldn't be an issue. They could do it. Unfortunately, with 215 Nickel, the recent wet weather that we've had, I can't see that building ever coming back with the amount of water damage that would now be in it. I mean, it's really too bad, and I'm hoping at some point that we can revisit this in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. So, it's been moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Show that Councillor Kipp and Fuller are opposed. Thank you. Motion carries. Next item, B, owner request for reconsideration of council decision at 619 Pine Street, suite removals. Requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak to suite removal at 619 Pine Street. She's up here ready to go. Can I have your name and address for the record, please, ma'am?
My name is Cora Moret. I am the owner of 619 Pine.
Can you pull that microphone up? I'm having trouble hearing you.
What?
Just as close to your mouth as you can get it. Thank you.
I currently reside on Cortez Island. I am here to let the council be advised that there is no secondary suite. I am breaking no law, and that this warrants a reversal of the decision on October 5th meeting. Honorable Mayor and Council, thank you for hearing me today, for this opportunity to speak of this home that I adore. I purchased the property known as 619 Pine with the intention of utilizing it as a single-family home. I purchased it while it was being used as a two-family home, suite upstairs and downstairs. I received a letter from the city shortly after purchasing it, letting me know that they were aware of the suite and that were the conditions to change, I should advise them immediately. Now, of course, I evicted the upstairs tenants so I could move in immediately. However, the downstairs tenants were a family with 3 children, and in deference to their needs, I did not evict them. I allowed them to stay. They had recently signed a lease with the former owner of the home, and so I let them stay as soon as they vacated of their own accord, owing me a lot of money. I was very kind to this lovely family. I rendered the home a single-family dwelling. I removed a storeroom that separated the units, and I no longer use it as a secondary suite. This is recorded with the city. I immediately deregistered it as a suite, and the user rates changed accordingly. Upon purchasing the property, I intended to use it as a single-family home. Living there for 5 years, I used it as a single-family home once I was able, and I continue to use it as a single-family dwelling. I love the house and property, and I would like to be able to keep it. I would prefer not to have to sell it. I believe it was a wise purchase. I still believe such, and I rely on that income, raising my tiny family on Cortez Island. The decision to leave downtown Nanaimo to a more optimal rural setting for raising young children was difficult because I do love it there. However, it was clearly the right decision. Cortez is a young child's paradise. Now, the central issue that has arisen from the city's action against my person in this matter is the forced removal of a secondary kitchen and my right to have a house with 2 kitchens. Now, the compliance with the city's demands would result in either a complete removal of all kitchen electrical and cabinetry in the basement, in the lower floor, or extensive upgrades to bring the space to within secondary suite standards. Both of these options are drastic. There is no option for me to retain 2 kitchens in a single-family home. The first option would significantly decrease the value of the property, as evidenced in the fact that I purchased the home because it had 2 kitchens. Summer kitchen, yeah. Thank you, I heard that. It would require the destruction of custom mosaic tiling that I did. I love that house. I spent many hours creating a beautiful living space that I believed was within my rights and freedom to do. And perhaps more poignantly, it would render this single-family home no longer adequate to meet the needs of the current long-term tenants who explicitly rented this home because it has 2 kitchens. These are 3 individuals who lived only a few blocks away, same neighborhood, right next door to each other, constantly at each other's houses. They wanted to live in the same home. They wanted to live in the same home with 2 kitchens. Now, it doesn't seem to me fair or within the city's realm of regulation to determine whether or how individuals choose to live as a family. It's even rather discriminatory to voice such a disregard for an individual's choice of lifestyle and the needs associated with that lifestyle, particularly from our elected officials, as we heard on October 5th meeting. We heard that while one could see the need for 2 bathrooms, 2 kitchens is kind of silly. I'm disturbed by this, to hear this. And it's a rejection of an individual's opinion based solely on council's opinion. I don't know. I personally grew up in a family of 5 with 1 bathroom. We survived. However, I think I would be healthier today if, as a teenager, I was able to sleep through breakfast preparations. My early years as a mother would have been greatly affected had we not had that second kitchen downstairs where our Nana was living, where we could give her peaceful mornings and have our own breakfast in our bright sunny kitchen upstairs, allowing for a warm, cozy dinner in front of her fireplace downstairs. I could go on all evening. The merits of having 2 kitchens in a single-family home. Cultural, religious, health reasons for 2 kitchens in a single-family home. These reasons seem obvious to me, but I understand that if one has never had or yearned for such a luxury, that maybe that could be overseen, and you wouldn't quite understand. The individuals currently calling 619 Pine home desired this luxury to the extent that it was one of the few major and immovable considerations in choosing a home to rent to accommodate their vastly different schedules. The previous meeting in November, where I was on the agenda and about to stand up to speak, and we adjourned, my tenant was with me. Unfortunately, he's out of town unexpectedly this evening. He can't be here to attest to this fact of having wanted the second kitchen, and the other 2 individuals work at night. Very different lifestyles as required by their chosen professions. Their tenants who love the house are very caring tenants, great tenants, love calling that place home, and with whom I have entered into a legal agreement in good faith. The requirements as set by staff would require that I, in removing this kitchen, render this home unlivable for these tenants, forcing a move, requiring, incurring a substantial financial burden and disruption to their lives. Or the second option presented by the city. An upgrade, transforming the suite to meet the standards of an authorized or a legal suite, both of which are extensive. I'm sure you have documentation, drywalling throughout, new heating. The effects of which entail really large renovations and would require the eviction of these tenants to conduct this work. Not to mention huge financial burden to myself, bringing an area into compliance with secondary suite standards when it is not being used as a secondary suite. I would like now to speak to this financial burden and other hardships I have had
You
to
got about 20
endure.
seconds, ma'am.
20 seconds? I thought I had 10 minutes.
It is 10.
Yep. You're coming up 20 seconds left.
Well, okay, here we go. Can we motion to let me finish? I don't know if you recall, but at the last meeting, we all sat here together for 4 hours. And again, I was not allowed to speak because we adjourned. Also, the meeting at September 21st, I was advised to be at. I was not given notice until the Friday before, by postmarked mail, postmarked the Friday before the Monday's meeting, that I was not allowed to, or that I was informed of its cancellation. So I believe it may be in order to motion to let me finish.
Councillor Hong.
I actually would like to let her finish because I do feel bad for her that she was here last time and we adjourned just before this topic came up. Then I would like to speak to her after she finishes her presentation.
How much time would you like to give the delegation?
I'm assuming she thought she had a 10-minute speech, so I can't be much longer.
I'm sorry?
I assume she knew she had 10 minutes, so...
I mean, it's so hard.
She
to have a
stated that
concept
she
of
knew
time.
she had 10 minutes, yes.
Yeah, so...
And it's been 10 minutes. I apologize.
So I can't see it being much longer because I'm sure she...
Ma'am,
would
how
have
much
hers.
time do you need?
No, I'm more than halfway.
You're more than halfway.
So we'll say 5. To be safe.
5 minutes. Your
Shall I
worship.
just continue?
I'll second that.
Second that? Okay. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll speak more
reset the
quickly.
clock for an additional 5 minutes, ma'am.
Please advise me if you don't understand. I'll speak more quickly.
Thank you. Carry on.
So, to this financial burden and other hardships, it starts with a tenant last year who I mistakenly took in. He expressed an immediate need for a place to live. He was a neighbor when his relationship broke down. And this was at a time when I was transitioning to Cortez Island, and he was going to take over the whole house. When we returned from our first move, the girlfriend was back. Huge destruction of property already, maybe through that embarrassment. I'm not sure what happened. Resulted in a blowout and a threat to my person and children, direct threat. Police were called. I barricaded with scrap plywood what I could of the house to keep it safe. RTB process ensued. It took nearly 2 months. This was an incredibly hard time for me. There was thousands and thousands of dollars of damage, theft, 19 truckloads of refuse left in the yard. It was horrible. And what seems to have resulted is a malicious and false complaint that I have a secondary suite. They're all the more keenly felt because of the action that is ensuing. This looming threat of forced renovations, eviction of my tenants, and devaluing of my house, the removal of this kitchen, is a psychological stress undue to myself, with repercussive effects on my very young children. Each trip to Nanaimo for these meetings that I either wasn't allowed to speak at or wasn't informed that it was canceled, it requires at least 2 nights and 3 days, travel long distance for my children, ferry costs, and fuel costs. Enduring these hardships and the imminent threat of continued action from the city of Nanaimo over the use of my private property is in particular, though not exclusively, unreasonable, because according to Nanaimo city bylaws, my house does not currently contain an illegal suite. The space of topic does not classify as a suite. It is not enclosed. It is not self-contained, as clearly evidenced by lack of any obstruction between the main living areas and the kitchens of both the upstairs and downstairs. It does not have a separate entrance. All the doors on the house are of a single key. There is no private entrance. The city itself has accepted the deregistration and removal of the suite. In addition, I am here to assert that it is not being used as a secondary suite. Likewise, my tenants are happy to sign an affidavit that they are using it as a single-family dwelling. The second argument presented by the City of Nanaimo at the October 5th meeting was something along the lines of, we've seen this before, and the owner can easily just turn around and set it up as a suite illegally. I must protest to this accusation as it is such. The city has not, in fact, seen this from me before. I have not done this. I have not ever set my house up illegally with a suite. For the city to presume guilt on my part is an absolute infringement of right to due process. It's like saying, if I own a car, oh, well, I could run a red light, so we better just remove the wheels of my car. I can keep the car, but, can't use it for what I need it for. It's not reasonable grounds that I could offend in the future to force me to comply, especially to this extremity this time. As this process is complaint-based, it's reasonable to assume that were I to offend, I would be reported in the future. And that since this process was instigated by a malicious complaint, it should be sufficient that an affidavit from myself and the occupants suffice in quelling the process. We heard from Honourable Councillor that I can't escape the rules, and I feel in this case neither can the city. And if indeed my second kitchen renders this space a secondary suite, then please show me in the bylaws that this is such. Especially in a case where we're talking about homes, hardship, quality of life. I can assert mine have been affected by this. I therefore demand the cessation of any action by the city against my person. This includes the removal of the designation of secondary suite on title, compensation for the hardship endured by my family as a result of this action so far, because it is unreasonable to force compliance that would result in the loss of property value, an imposed financial burden, or the displacement of my tenants, where, especially though not exclusively, the space in question does not qualify as a secondary suite according to city bylaws. I love this house. I have immense respect for my tenants. I do not want to have to evict them or sell my home to pay for this renovation.
Ma'am, I have to stop you. You've had about 16 minutes now. Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to the delegation. Thank you. I don't think it's just the kitchen that classifies you as a secondary suite. I know for a fact, not to be racist, but East Indians have two kitchens, usually one right next to each other, because they have a stinky kitchen, which they make really stinky food in, and they don't want to ruin their good kitchen. I know this because my friend is building a house right now, and I see that he has two kitchens in a single-family residential unit. The difference that you have here is if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck. So I'm sure that we can work with staff. Now my question to staff, can she just block off the back door and seal it up? It's not a definition of a secondary suite. It has to have a secondary entrance.
Your Honor, in this case, the building department staff has been trying to work with the owner, it looks like here, for quite some time to bring the property into compliance. We've been unable to do that at this time because of the life safety issues involved with the kitchen and the substandard windows, the lack of headroom, the access to the furnace room through a closet. All of these issues under the fire and life safety are the recommendation is why we would like to see the suite removed.
So
what used to be a suite?
Yeah, so again, it's just not the kitchen. It's all these other things have built up to it.
It's a combination of everything that's in that lower level.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Yocum.
Thank you. A question I have in regards to staff, or maybe to the presenter, would be in regards to, does the delegate have the same report? See the same stuff I'm reading? I don't know who I'm looking there, sorry. On 619? Okay, but she'd be aware of the deficiencies.
I'm sorry?
She would be aware of the deficiencies in the home?
I would assume that she would be aware of the deficiencies in
Okay,
the
so
home.
the question I have, whether, I'm not going to don't feel like being judge or jury if this is a suite. I hear you, and a lot of people I know have 2 kitchens. But nevertheless, the list of quite a few things need changed or fixed for safety. Would that happen to would those have to happen regardless whether there's a suite or not? Like the windows need replaced, fire separation. This list, does it come into play regardless of what the home's deemed as? Sorry for I don't know this.
There will be certain things in this list that would be required for the lower level bedrooms, regardless of whether it's a suite or a single family residence.
Point of order, Your Worship, that's not true. In a house that exists, there is no reason to upgrade the windows to, I mean, it should be done, but point of order says you cannot walk into someone's house now that is an existing house. The argument here is whether these are required for secondary suite. That's egress and the size of the window. We cannot have staff saying that every window in the 9-1 needs to be replaced right now for safety. That just doesn't cut it with me. This is about a secondary suite. Those do not have to be done if there's no secondary suite. Am I correct? Staff?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any further speakers.
Actually.
Councillor Fuller.
This isn't to the delegation. This is more to staff.
Can we then ask receive the delegation?
Yeah.
Motion to receive the delegation. Councillor Beswick, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am. We're finished. Thank you. Councillor Fuller, questions to staff.
So if I'm to build a new home and throw 2 kitchens in it, not put a separation door, I like the idea of a couple rooms down in the basement area, TV room, maybe it's cooler in the summer, might be a nice place to sleep. No real intention of it being a secondary suite, but I do like the idea of the second kitchen, just in case my in-laws come, who I can't stand. I don't want them up there upstairs cooking all the time and disturbing me when I'm trying to rest and relax and not watch sports, which they so love, and they can watch downstairs. Would I be allowed to build a house like that?
And, Your Honor, through you to Councillor Fuller, if you had a building permit and installed to code, you would absolutely be able to build the house as per the building regulations. Unfortunately, in this case, there was no building permit issued for any of this construction.
How old is this house? And the permits for everything in that house go back that far?
I don't have in front of me permits all the way back. The report from the building department is the alterations made for the suite in the lower level were built without benefit of a permit.
That they know of.
Finished, Councillor Fuller?
Yeah,
sure. Thank you. Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. I was reading on page 2, on our pages, I don't know, page 2 of the report there, where it states, definitely respect the work of what we've done here at the city in respecting safety and concern of fire hazards. And it has been stated that this house has, not from the lady that spoke, but previous has been rented out, had multiple tenants in the past, confirmed by finance in 2012. Totally get it. And it said multiple user rates for the suite. And nothing's preventing this from happening in the future. I totally like to take people's word as face value, the truth. I'm not saying no one else is. Is there a way, can we legally draft an agreement or put the lady on notice saying, like, you know what, we believe in you, or I don't know how the word would be. I'm not a very good wordsmither, but nevertheless, faith and believing. And then if that individual actually signs it, gets it, and then our staff say, you know what, you pulled the wool over our eyes or something, you know, reality, if this happens, this is going to happen. Because I believe it takes quite honesty and sincerity for someone to come and speak for 16 minutes of saying they don't have, it's one tenant. So I just wonder if there's the flexibility. I don't know. But I like to work with flexibility and believe in people at face value, but also making sure it doesn't happen. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I do have a couple of concerns with this house, even if it is a single-family residential. The fact that there's no smoke alarms, that's a real big concern for me. We've had a fire just up the street from here because the landlord had disconnected or not plugged in or flipped the breaker, whatever it would be, on the smoke alarm, and a family died. As simple as a smoke alarm is important. It's very important, actually. It's one of the most important things and a way to get out. And I think Councillor Kipp said it right, that if this is predates to anything, you know, I do have concerns about bedrooms, but why couldn't we seal the door? A secondary suite by law, one of the things that you need is another entrance in. Put a window there as an egress window. Let them have their kitchen. That's going to assure that this is a single-family house. And if you have borders in there, I don't think we can dictate what the borders are, but you know, it's only legalizing or separating secondary suites. So if they can't get in and they come in the same way, either way, we can't dictate how many people live in that house or what they do. But you know, life safety things are a concern to me. If we are concerned about this being a secondary suite, taking that rear door out, putting an egress window in there, if this woman is dead on set, keeping her secondary kitchen, seems like the easiest way, and the fire alarm, sprinklers, and all the other important things that are important for life safety, would turn this into a single-family home. Because I know for one that I won't rent a secondary suite if I don't have my own entrance. Otherwise, I'm just called roommates or shared suites. So, and if we can't govern those, and if we're just governing secondary suites, a door into that suite seems the most logical, seems the most beneficial if she's interested in keeping two kitchens. I don't know what that is to staff, if that's acceptable or not, or what are your concerns?
Your Worship, the staff's concerns here are that we've been trying to make contact with the owner through telephone and correspondence to bring the property into compliance. We've not been able to do that to date. That's why we have come to, that's why the original report came through to council asking for the removal of the suite. We're still of that opinion that we've been unable to get compliance. We've been unable to meet the concerns of the bylaw, and that was the reason that we were here in the first place.
But she's here now, so what can we do?
Ma'am, please sit down. We're trying to deliberate here now. Please sit down. Thank you. You've had your opportunity. Thank you. Ms. Samra.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wanted to respond to Councillor Yoakum's question about whether or not we can enter into an agreement to have her guarantee that she won't contravene the bylaws with respect to secondary suites. Our remedy is the fact that the bylaw exists, and if she were to convert the single-family dwelling to have a secondary suite, then that would trigger an investigation. From what I've heard her state this evening, and I have to apologize because I am only 3 weeks on the job and I'm not terribly familiar with this bylaw, but it seems as though she's taken express steps to reclassify and register the home as a single-family dwelling, and she has indicated that she has a lease agreement that indicates it's being used as a single-family dwelling. So something that you may wish to explore with the experts on staff is whether or not, in its current state as a single-family dwelling, does that trigger the action that's being sought now? bearing in mind that they've made many efforts to communicate with her and had not been provided with that information coming into this council meeting. That would have been critical information for them in the preparation of the report. So I'm supportive of staff of how they've come forward, but it appears that there may be additional information you may wish to consider at this point in time.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
Yeah, I don't think having a door in a basement would be illegal. Otherwise, I'd have to block my door off in my basement, and that could be a real safety issue, especially for my dog if there's a fire in the kitchen and he can't get out, because I leave my basement door open all the time. One of the things that makes a secondary suite is when you're unable to access the whole of the house through the suite. You're separated from the above by a door that actually locks, and this one does not have that, which, if I'm not mistaken, the person that's downstairs could wander upstairs anytime. Probably respects the time that people work, and they don't do that. You're allowed to have 5 unrelated people in a house. So having 3 unrelated people in a house renting a house, that seems to be fine. The windows were probably there in the basement, like mine. Hopefully they never come by and look at my basement windows, because those were put in probably around 1910. And, you know, they might not be thick enough for me to climb out, though I would try my best. But I have a basement door, so I can get out there. So I have to wonder how many of these have resulted in people having to sell their homes because we put such a huge cost to remove something, and we don't take a person's word that they have removed it, that they will not do it. We put a Section 57 on the title, and that lets people know, if they come to buy it, that there's been work done that might not have had permits. So, all of these things are really, really hard for me. How many people in the past have had to sell their homes because they could not afford to redo it? And that would be great, you know. I would, having seen the area where this house is, and, you know, I would think, oh, cool. She's going to sell her house, I'm going to come in, I'll purchase it for that price, I'll demolish it, and then I'll put up a house with a secondary suite in it. Because that's what I do. I'm a developer. I can get it cheap because she has to sell it cheap. Because, you know, so... Yeah, when it comes to the motion, I'm not going to support the motion on this. I think I think we really have to look at some of this stuff and revisit it. Well, there is trust. Yeah. So, at some point we have to have faith that the people are not going to do that. It's like when you mandate them to remove the kitchen and all of that, they have to take out all of the wiring. For me, it would be simple enough that you remove the stove, you cover up that outlet, you drywall over it, put a patch in, and then you disconnect the wiring from the fuse box. To me, that would be a simple solution. It wouldn't cost $30,000 to have all the wiring ripped out and then have to re-drywall everything. And then, of course, when you do re-drywall everything, you're going to have to do it to the current code because you got to get a building permit. So it's going to cost you a fortune. Anyway, on this one, I'm not going to support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Kipp.
Thank you. Through the staff, does the tenant or the owner of the building had her garbage and utility fees reduced? They were double and now they're single?
I don't have that information. I can certainly get that for you tomorrow, but I don't have that information with me.
Because they said they recertified as a single, so that would reduce because typically garbage trucks see double cans, they report it, somebody goes and looks, they see the suite and they they check it out. So I heard from the speaker that they did that, so staff doesn't have an answer for that. Okay, if I can continue, section 73 is about hazard, and it really only one it relates, and this is 73.2b, the things that contravene the provincial building regulations or bylaw under section 8, the spheres of authority in the building and other structure, or division 8 building regulations of this part. None of these regulations would suit a single family of its age. So I don't know why this seems to be being pushed. Obviously, the person said they had trouble being in contact or tried to do something. Is there a section 57 register on this title that warns the next purchaser? I'm getting a thumbs up over there. Yeah, so as it sits right now, with the confusion between not having all the information on both sides, I can't support this motion currently. I could see a section 57. What I concern myself here is that 20 years ago, I tried to get secondary suites because they're an affordable form of housing. This one is unsafe in some of the things, like Councillor Hong said. In my old house, even, I replaced the windows, and there's a size calculation. Because my windows, I would have barely fit through to dive out. Now I can dive right out the window, right? So I did that on my own, and it's an expensive proposition to replace windows. So from my perspective, I've always supported the summer kitchen issue that's come up before. People having the right to have that. I could count my barbecue as a kitchen, the way it's set up. So I can't support this currently. I don't know whether we need to send it back to staff to try and come up with some resolution, ensure there's a 57 registered on it. And that's the agreement we would have is, I guess staff would go check every once in a while to see if the garbage are that, and that's what they do now. They look in the newspaper to see if things are being rented. They look, they drive around. Our different staff report where they see double garbage and that, and that's how these things are arrived at. And then it seems like, I'm going to say this, and with all intent purpose of not insulting anyone or hurting anyone's feelings, the people don't ever seem that they get help from our staff. It's tear it out. The one on Bowen Road a little while ago, they 2-bedroom house, and our staff was 14 minutes on the site looking around. A day they weren't there, but they said they never got any help of what to do. And I don't know if we advise people on this or how we can advise them, because what can you do in a house? We had one before where it was only 6'3" headroom in the basement. But people have been living in these things for decades, and I understand if I got a brand new house with a 2-car garage attached to it that I don't accept some of these standards. But what we may be needing in Nanaimo is a standards of maintenance bylaw. That's more what we're talking about here, is a standards of maintenance. So the city staff can go to say that no, our standards of maintenance says that house doesn't suit for any secondary suite. So I can't support the recommendations from council or from staff at this point. I just think it's still too confusing. Communications has been, I think I've heard both sides complaining that communications is flawed. It's staff's interpretation that this is a Section 73 hazardous on their opinion that it's a secondary suite. And there's a definite contradiction between the two points of view. So I can't support this motion.
Councillor Yocum.
Thank you, Worship. Not to belabor my earlier comments, the question I was going to have, or a comment to Ms. Samra and her staff is, I'm sort of struggling here because I am, as the lady said, I do trust and take their word that it is only a single unit, but there are some safety measures that I want everyone to be safe and I want the city to be liable for. I hope to create some space to where we can work together, because our staff have valid points and the delegate have valid points, and I believe this is the case. It's communications, and get together and have a circle and resolve what may be suggestions and work together on this matter. So I'd like to almost defer it back to you, Ms. Samra, because I'm struggling here. Thank you.
Your Worship, I just had a brief conversation with the corporate officer, and one way to approach this would be to table the motion to permit staff to go back and verify the submissions that the owner has made and get the additional information that you've requested. It preserves the fact that she's had her right to be present and present on this matter, so that we preserve that status, and then you're able to make a decision with a little bit more information.
Councillor Thornton.
I'd just like to say I think that's an excellent approach, and I would support that. Do we need a motion to that effect?
I'm considering that a motion.
All right.
Seconded by Councillor Kipp. Discussion. Councillor Fuller.
I think that'd be an excellent idea. Somehow we have to work with the owners of these houses. I would be in the same bind as Ms. Murray.
There is no discussion on a motion to table. It's just a decision one way or the other.
Okay, so I mistook that. I apologize.
Thank you for the reminder. Okay, call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item. Fire hydrant maintenance contract. To advise council of a public tender call of $250,000 and above in accordance with the city's purchasing policy. There's a staff recommendation on page 240 that council receive for information the report pertaining to the fire hydrant maintenance contract. Do we have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Brennan. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Pratt. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. The staff recommendation is that we receive the report pertaining to the fire hydrant maintenance contract. And so the report is advising us that we'll be putting out a request for tender to procure a contractor to provide fire hydrant maintenance to approximately 3,000 fire hydrants for 3 years with a 2-year option and then something else. There was a time that this was a function performed internally. And we are entering into a core services review. We are entering into a core services review that will identify contract work, internal work. I'm not willing and or prepared to support this motion to enter into what is ultimately 5 years. I would suggest that this motion be defeated and that we enter into a 1-year agreement, which means we actually don't have to have this motion. The only reason we're here is because it's in excess of $250,000 tender proposal. Because I'd like to hear what the Core Services Review tells us about not only this contract project, but others like it. I find it hard to accept that this is something that could not be done internally for $140,000 per year, when I know categorically it was done by Public Works Utilities staff approximately a decade ago. And this is simply for the repair and maintenance, which does not include parts or otherwise. As far as I understand, it doesn't say that in the report, but I trust this is just simply labor. So with that said, I won't be supporting the recommendation to put this out for tender for an estimated cost of $420,000 over 3 years. Thank you.
Councillor Beswick, can I get you to take the chair, please? Councillor Kipp, next up.
Yeah, one of my questions is related to core service review, and we used to do this internally, and I thought there was some concern. Public Works took it over or gave it up in 2004 to the fire department, I believe, something like that. And the fire department took it over as a private contract. I think it is a core service idea now. We're looking at what our employment is, what is that. So I'm not certain how we can do this with staff, whether we send it back for a 1-year purchase and then bring it to the core service review that we're trying to get onto. So currently I have, it's another contract coming up, and I understand, I appreciate the staff brought it forward to us but I'd like to see it go to core service.
Thank you, Councillor Kipp. There are no other speakers. Is there any other speakers on this topic? There is a motion on the floor. Councillor Brennan?
Chief Richardson to comment on this and why it was determined necessary to go for the longer period of time, and why we wouldn't be using our own staff in Public Works.
So my understanding, Your Worship, is that it predated my time coming to the city when this contract was entered into with the contractor, and the work stopped being conducted by Public Works staff. My understanding at the time was that the contractor was able to do it at a lower price. However, having said that, I appreciate the core services review comments, and currently we're without a contract. The existing contractor is continuing on with the same rates, performing the service while we work through a tendering process. So certainly there is options to amend as required.
Thank you. There are no other speakers. There is a motion on the floor that has been seconded. I would call the question. If anybody would like the motion to be read out. The council received for information the report pertaining to the fire hydrant maintenance contract. Councillor Hong.
So we're not deciding on anything. We're just receiving this for information. Is that correct?
That is, in my opinion, incorrect, because the information that we're accepting is that staff will be tendering a request for tenders to procure a contractor for 3 years with a 2-year option to extend for an estimated amount of $420,000.
Thank you.
Staff 3. I'm not sure who staff 3 is on the list here. I apologize. Tracy, that's you. Ms. Samra, sorry.
Yes, I think that point of clarification is correct. So you may wish to discuss whether or not you support, you may need an additional motion after this to direct them to go month to month pending the core services review.
Thank you. So what I understand the recommendation to be is to receive for information, that information being that we would be approving to go out for tender. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, I don't have to do that. Yeah. The motion is defeated. Is there another motion that anybody would like to make?
Motion that council direct staff to go out for a 1-year purchase.
So do I understand the motion to be to continue?
I'm dying here. Excuse me. Council direct staff to go to a call for a 1-year tender.
Is there a seconder? Second. Moved by Councillor Kipp, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. And I have Councillor Yoakum and then Councillor Pratt. Councillor Kipp, would you like to speak to it? Councillor Yoakum?
Gord, does Jim need CPR? Okay. Okay. In all seriousness, so Councillor Bestwick, extending it 1 more year. I would like more clarity on this whole conversation. Is it extended regardless the service needs to happen, correct? Or should we have more conversation? Wait for staff to give us a report since we have a new direction.
It is my understanding through Mr. Richardson that the contract has expired and we are going on a month-to-month basis until such time as a tender for services takes place. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Worship, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so just a follow-up, thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this an avenue, Ms. Samra, you feel, or staff, is an avenue we should be going down?
So, Your Worship, yeah, I believe that the contractor would be amenable to continuing on a month-to-month basis subject to him accepting his current rates, which I'm presumable that he would do so.
Okay, just to totally wrap it up now, I said that 2 comments ago. I'm comfortable going month to month. Month to month, I'm comfortable with obviously there'll be some out clauses. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if we are making a motion, if it's month to month, I'm definitely can support that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Pratt and then Fuller, but Councillor Fuller is off. So Councillor Pratt, you are in the queue.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Yoakum that it makes more sense to just go month to month until such times as we decide through the core review whether or not we're going to change our approach. And so that would require, I guess, a friendly amendment. Okay. All right.
Yep. So we need a seconder for that. Seconded by Councillor Thorpe.
I seconded Councillor Kipp's motion, and I accept that amendment as well.
So there's a motion on the floor and a friendly amendment. So, seeing no further speakers, can we have the clerk read it out, please?
Certainly, Your Worship. It's moved and seconded to direct staff to have a 1-year contract for fire hydrant maintenance. A 1-year contract for fire hydrant maintenance contract on a month-to-month basis until this item is addressed in the core services review. So we're deleting 1 year, and it's going to remain just as a month-to-month.
Council understands the motion? Very good. Thank you. No further speakers. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, property maintenance bylaw number 1990, bylaw 1990, number 3704. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to property maintenance for the properties listed. The first one is 241 Irwin Street. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to 241 Irwin Street? Seeing none. 422, Mr. Taylor.
Fred Taylor of 204 Emery Way. If you don't mind, Mayor McKay, I'll speak to them all at this time. I do not support your actions or proposed actions because I have been before council in the past, and there's many commercial industrial properties around these properties, almost next door, that you refuse to take any action against with actual truck wrecks, everything else located on the properties. And in June the 1st, page 25, your council minutes, it was moved and seconded that council direct staff to prepare a report on enforcement actions possible for the unsightly commercial industrial properties that I've brought to your attention, and it passed unanimously. So therefore, I can't support taking action against the residential property for blackberries or something that could go to the food share or whatever, or make a pie, when you've got industrial commercial properties almost next door with large wrecks of trucks, numerous of them. They don't have auto salvage licenses or anything. They're illegal, in my opinion.
Mr. Taylor, do you wish to speak to the properties that are listed here?
Yes, I am.
We are speaking to commercial properties, sir.
I'm speaking to the properties that you have before you, and I'm not agreeing with any action against them, and I'm stating my reason why. Because you don't want to take action against the next door neighbor that might be commercial or industrial.
Thank you, sir. Next one, 422 Wharton Street. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak to 422 Wharton Street? 626 Halliburton Street. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to 626 Halliburton Street? Please, sir, give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Douglas Bricks, 501 6th Street, Nanaimo.
I just wanted to advise council about 626 Halliburton Street. I am a personal acquaintance of the owner of that property. I don't know if council is aware, the owner of that property has in the past suffered a significant medical event which was life-altering, required rehab, and continues to require rehab. Friends and supporters of that individual have gone to the property and done a significant amount of work to that, cleaning up, the blackberries and hauling away a lot of the garbage, as the owner of the property is, medically unable to perform any of that work right now. So I would just ask council then that that property, be removed from any current action that's going on, as quite a bit of it has been remedied, and the property owner is recovering from his medical event. Thank you.
Don't go. Councillor Bestwick, you to speak to the delegation?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. The pictures here are dated, I think it's July 12th. So the 12th day of the 7th month.
The pictures were taken this morning. That would be December the 7th, 2015.
I'm sorry?
That's December the 7th.
Oh my
These
God.
pictures were taken this morning.
Okay, so I had it backwards. You indicated that you've done some cleanup for your...
There has been a significant amount of work done. The motorcycles have been removed. Lots of bags of garbage has been removed, and there continues to be ongoing work. A lot of the blackberries were removed from the property, things that were on the list. This is all being done by friends of the property owner who hospital and continues to be in rehab.
So thank you. So clearly the gentleman won't be in any have any ability to do it by himself. So are his friends committed to ensuring the exterior is brought to a different state than we see it today?
Yes, the friends and supporters of the property owner continue to, do work as time and vehicles allow, as this continues to go on. I think on the list, most of that's already been, the specific concerns have been remedied as far as the blackberry bushes, the motorcycles, and the garbage and stuff. Many of those things have already been remedied.
Thank you. So you asked us to remove any action.
Because here, from what I understand, they're saying that the work must be completed within 14 days is what we're asking to do here now, right?
So you're asking for an extension to the 14 days, or just...
Yeah, as a personal acquaintance of the property owner, I would just like to see that, council doesn't order something to go against this person within 14 days, right? And I think, I'm not sure the recommendations of staff, they've taken some pictures I can see, but I think a lot, it is an older property and whatever, but I think a lot of the concerns on this list have already been addressed.
Okay, so 14 days is 14 days. Could you please help me better understand how many days you're seeking? And you're seeking an extension to the 14 days, in essence.
Well, what I'm saying is a lot of the work to the property has already been done. I don't know what staff feels additionally needs to be done besides what's already been taken care of the list. Some of the garbage needs to, remains to be hauled away, and
okay, so there's a considerable amount of work to do. So you need more time to bring this up to an acceptable standard.
Yeah, this is definitely something that's being done, like I said, by volunteers and whatever.
I completely understand.
I would like to see an extension on that for sure.
So I completely understand. So is 30 days, which will only get you through Christmas? Is it 60 days? Is it 45 days? Help me help you.
I'd like to see like 90 days.
Sorry?
I'd like to see somewhere in the range of 60 to 90 days. The Christmas season's coming up for these people, right? So, and it's all being done by friends of the property owner. There has been some work done already, and that continues.
This all started on November the 10th with a complaint, so it's only been 3 weeks that the property owner has had Okay, thank you very much.
Action has already been taken, so.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Brennan.
No, I think Councillor Bestwick covered my question. Thank you.
Next one, 67 Porter Road. Anyone wishing to speak to 67 Porter Road? Seeing none. There is a staff recommendation on page 242.
I would like to make a motion that we direct the owners of the following properties to remove the material as listed below within 14 days, with the exception of number 5, 626 Halliburton Street. And if that passes, then I would make a subsequent motion that 626 Halliburton Street have a 60-day period.
Very good. Seconded by Councillor Kipp. Councillor Bestwick, do you just wish to speak to that? Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the motion as we hear it?
Can I just be clear on that? Or did you take that as one motion, or did it include
I took that
both?
as one motion that specifically talked about the other 3 properties based on the staff recommendation of 14 days with a codicil that 626 be given 60 days.
Okay, thank you.
Am I correct in that, Mr. Jackson?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you.
And just to point out that there are 2 items removed. Sorry, Councillor Brennan, you mentioned item number 5, so there's only 4 items for consideration. The middle 2 are gone.
So it actually shows as item number 3 with the other 2 removed.
With the amendment, yes.
Thank you. I think we've all got the gist of it. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item. Advisory Committee Commission minutes. We've got one for Special Open Parks and Recreation Commission meeting held 2015, April 22. Grants Advisory Committee meeting. You're itching to say something, Mr. Jackson.
Just, Your Worship, you can consider them all together in one motion.
And regular Parks and Recreation Commission meeting held on September 30th, and the Planning and Transportation Advisory Committee meeting held on October 20th. Move receipt. Thank you, Councillor, and seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we get into bylaws with no accompanying report. First one.
Move zoning amendment bylaw 2015 number 4500.081. Save you reading it. RA 345 to rezone 601 and 609 Bruce Avenue Commercial Center, City, CC3, with the additional conditions of limiting the operation hours of retail, restaurant, and fast food uses from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. past third reading.
Thank you, Councillor Kipp. Do you have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Discussion. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Kipp?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. Call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move the zoning amendment bylaw 2015 number 4500.086 to rezone 2992 104th Street from single dwelling residential R1 and community service 1 CS1 to single dwelling residential small lot R2 be adopted.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Thorpe. Thank you. Discussion, seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move the Lindley Valley Cottle Lake Park dedication, removal, and disposal bylaw 2015 number 7219 to remove the park dedication and authorize disposal of a portion of Lindley Valley Cottle Lake Park be adopted.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Discussion, seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move D, that highway closure and dedication removal a portion of Dundas Street adjacent to 604 and 606 Hillcrest, bylaw 2015 number 7220, pass third reading.
Thank you. Seconder? Seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Thank you. Discussion, seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence, none related. There's none. Notice of motion, none. Other business. At the regular committee of the whole meeting held November 15th, held November 23rd, Councillor Bestwick advised to be bringing forward the following motion for consideration. I'll let Councillor Bestwick read the motion.
Thank you. The motion reads that council direct staff to prepare a report on options, timelines, one-time costs, and maintenance of installing a 24/7 live web camera at the Lower Colleray Dam Park that can provide remote viewing of the spillway construction and make it accessible via the city website.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hong, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Bestwick? Okay, thank you. Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you, Worship. Just quickly, I think this is a great idea for the viewing of the spillway, but even after the spillway, just such a gem. And I think at the end of the day, the amendments make the beautification of the park, if we can say such thing, that's oxymoron in this case, but nevertheless, I think it'd be key. But also the other beautiful parts of the city as well. I think this is great. It's a great idea to showcase the beautiful parts of our city. And I'm assuming with this technology it can be moved around at times as well. So I definitely support the recommendation for a report, at least, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually like this idea as well. I'm hoping that this camera is going to be portable, something that we can use through other events, that we can actually broadcast live as well from web streaming. That I know that the bathtub race would be great. Maybe some of the parades that we do that people can't see, that we can stream live on the website. I know that in their Doug Rispin room that we have a beautiful view from this facility onto the harbor when we're not watching anything. It's great. It's like watching that fireplace at Christmas time. God, I love that thing. So live feeds are wonderful. I support
Thank
it.
you. Councillor Fuller.
I too will support this. I mean, if someone can put a camera up in an eagle's nest and you can watch a egg hatch for months on end, surely he removes that camera and puts it somewhere else afterwards. So if an individual can do this, surely the city of Nanaimo can do this.
Thank you. Councillor Kipp.
I like the idea. Can't support spending another penny on watching that pit be opened up, so I can't support this. Sorry. It's just a big pit. Picture of a massive dirt pit. I can't
Thank you. Seeing no further speakers, call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Show that Councillor Kipp is opposed.
Your
Motion
Worship?
carries.
I've discussed this with the corporate officer, and I would like to make the recommendation, given the significant backlog we have in agenda items, we've had to schedule an additional council meeting before the end of December, that council consider reconvening the in-camera meeting. We have 2 agenda items that staff are in attendance for and are prepared to speak to. So the corporate officer can walk you through what would be required to resume the in-camera meeting for at least an hour.
Thank you. Corporate officer.
Your Worship, so after a question period, then what would happen is the procedural motion to go in camera, and I've identified item 90 sub 1E, J, and N, and I can read those out at that time. Or I can do it now if you please.
Please do.
Okay, so after a question period, I'd recommend that Council close the meeting to the public in order to deal with agenda items under Community Charter 91N for the consideration of whether a council meeting should be closed under provision of this bylaw, under the provision of the Act, as well as the acquisition, disposition, expropriation of land or improvements, and information prohibited under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act. I paraphrased it a bit, but those are the 3.
Thank you. Will require a motion, Council.
Your Worship, I'm curious, sorry, do you want to do this after question period, or?
We'll do it after question period.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so question period.
Emery Way. I was wondering when you were going to call more speakers for 619 Pine.
Sorry, sir? Can you repeat that?
Yes, you extended time to a lady for speaking to 619 Pine. but you then went on to council business without allowing someone else to speak to it as well, because it says it is requested council hear anyone wishing to speak to the issue. I was wondering when you were going to do that.
Did you wish to speak to it, sir?
Yes, especially when I have evidence of suites being advertised in houses and being inspected with no locking door, generating no second garbage taxes, etc.
Sir, I need you to speak to I need you to speak to 619 Pine Street. No other addresses, 619 Pine Street only, sir.
I disagree with the action I see waiting here because I have evidence to the contrary elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin Story, 2562 Rosstown Road, Nanaimo. I'd just like a clarification, if I could, Mr. Mayor. Item 2 under the Mayor's report regarding the confidential information, is that now part of the agenda once he reports that? I'm pretty sure it is.
It's public information now. Yes.
Okay, fine. I would like to commend Councillor Thorpe for doing the honorable thing and admitting that you did run awry of the municipal charter and apologizing. I have a question for Council. This is a very, very serious incident, extremely serious. It can damage every bit of work that this council does when it comes to dealing with perhaps property acquisitions or sales, the employment of key personnel, and could undermine the authority or undermine the respect of staff when it comes to dealing with council. So a question that I have to ask, and first of all, I want to point out Part 29, Chapter 323 of the Local Government Act allows for investigation, allows for the Attorney General to appoint investigators to investigate incidents such as this, and if necessary, order council to take action regarding serious offenses under the Charter or under the Local Governance Act. So a broad question I have for council. Are you satisfied with an apology, or do you think further action should be taken? There's more questions. I'll ask all these questions at once. You have a person who sits on a municipal council that disseminated this information over the internet. Is that person going to be allowed to stay as a committee member for this council when that person, by osmosis or by intention, has violated his duty as a municipal committee member? Very serious questions, my friends. My last question is to the mayor. Sir, on December the 2nd, you had a conversation with Digny Madan. Do you know Digny Madan from the United Way?
I know no such person.
Signy Madan, sorry, my writing. Signy Madan?
Signy Madden.
Madden, sorry. Did you have a conversation with that person on December the 2nd?
No comment.
Okay. Sydney wrote in an email.
Sir.
Spoke to you
sir,
on the morning.
I know what questions you're going to ask, and I'm going to tell you that I have no comment.
Right, I will just read the statement then. In an email from this person, she or he stated that she had a conversation with the mayor on the morning of December the 2nd, and the mayor informed that person that no action was to be taken on this file, as there was no evidence of any wrongdoing. That, my friends, is also a distribution of confidential information coming from an in-camera meeting. So we have 3 people involved here. The only person that has done the honorable thing at this point and apologized is Councillor Thorpe, and thank you, sir, for that. Is a simple apology enough for this council? Or should you discuss this again and decide whether you should take further action? The people of this community have had enough. Enough of information being spread that shouldn't be, of a lack of leadership, votes being ignored, majority being ignored, and the citizens being ignored. This council has an opportunity right now to show leadership, to get the courage, to get the strength, if necessary, to censure your own council members. A very, very hard thing to do. But the public are watching. Public want action. I have all my questions. I'll take questions from you if you like.
No, I would like to answer your questions. Your first question with respect to whether or not the council has deliberated enough on this issue, my answer is yes, they have, at length.
Could I ask each council member individually if they agree with that?
No, sir. Decision has been made by council. Tonight I reported on the decision that's been made by council.
My second question?
Can you repeat it, please?
Second question was in regard to the individual holding a council committee seat. Mr. Bonner.
Sir, council has deliberated on this issue, and I reported tonight council's decision.
And your decision was? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Decision was tonight that there would be 2 members of council that would apologize for divulging in-camera information.
Sir, I heard that one person apologized and one person is seeking legal advice. I heard one apology.
One moment, sir. Ms. Sammer. Oh, Councillor Fuller.
I believe his question was with regards to someone on a committee or some such, and I don't believe we have discussed that or dealt with it at this point. So just wanted to point that out.
Worship, I would caution any discussion or identification of an individual for the potential of defamation to that individual. So at this point, we're not in a position to respond to that question.
Okay.
Mayor is not going to respond to my third question. I will inform council that we have, as a group, a large group in the community, been in discussion with the authorities in Victoria in regards to Section 323 and the possible investigation. I don't want to threaten council, I don't want to sound like an ogre, but if this council does not get serious about having real government in this town, then the citizens are going to have to take over and file a complaint through the Lieutenant Governor. Thank you.
Sir, any other questions?
Yeah, I do.
Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, sir. In regards to any of the conversation from B or C of your questions, not saying any names of any individuals, there was no conversation about on those matters in regards to the email from the lady from United Way or the second question. I did not participate earlier in the conversation in those deliberations of any sort.
Sorry, what were you?
I did not recall conversations in regards to B or C or questions. So we just had time to deal with the original questions there. I just want to give you what was happening.
Mayor, the mayor's had no comment on my second question. That was regarding...
Yeah, I can't speak for the mayor, but there was no conversation in regards to that question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seconded by Councillor Kipp.
In accordance with E, J, and N.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We're now on camera.
None opposed? No. He wasn't opposed.